Hey, what's up everyone? I'm Tenyan, and in this video I wanted to discuss the pretty new Max streaming series Gremlins Secrets of the Mogwai, which aired last year and serves as a prequel to the two previous live-action movies. And I didn't get a chance to watch the show until recently. Being a huge Gremlins fan, I knew I wanted to talk about this series, and specifically in terms of the format of this video, wanted to focus on the Gremlin characters themselves, who are referred to as the old batch of this series, because of course it's a prequel series. So this is the first batch, the old batch of Gremlins. But before we get into that, I just wanted to give my general review of the series, which coming into it, I wasn't overly hyped for it. And one reason for that is that I wasn't specifically looking forward to an animated Gremlins series. I wanted to see a live action third film sequel follow up. Now, having said that, having seen the series, I had a blast with it. I ultimately really enjoy it. I like a lot of the creative choices they make with the lore and the mythology. Not being a big fan of the character designs, I am more of a fan of the creature designs. I think they, for the most part, really nail like the Mogwai and their look, particularly the character of Gizmo. He has such a range of expressions, and all those quintessential Gizmo looks and expressions and range of emotions that he shows in those first two films, he shows here in animated form, and they just utterly nail it. Unexpectedly, violent show too. I expected the show to water down the violence more than it actually does, and it really does preserve the playful, chaotic spirit of those original movies. I mean, the Gremlins are equally nasty and sadistic and playful, and they're just little anarchists running around wreaking havoc. Yeah, on the whole, I had a blast with this series. I would recommend it to any Gremlins fan. I think they also did a nice job with the storytelling, and I love the way they also like pepper the story and the adventures with elements taken from Chinese folklore and mythology. As much as I didn't like the character designs themselves, really stellar voice performances and a stellar cast as well. You got actors like Ming-Na Wen, B.D. Wong, also James Hong, one of my favorite character actors. All right, so let's dive right into the main topic of the video and explore the different new Gremlin characters that are introduced, the so-called old batch. To begin with, this show provides an origin story for the Mogwai, who we learn were created by the Chinese gods, specifically a brother and sister duo named Fusi and Nuwa, who are actual gods in Chinese mythology that I just learned about here. And they, in this show, create the Mogwais to test humanity. And the way they test humanity is by giving them Mogwai to protect and seeing if they can care for the Mogwai without breaking the three essential rules, which, as we probably know, are number one, never expose a Mogwai to bright light, especially direct sunlight, which can kill them. Number two, never expose them to water. And finally, number three, never ever feed them after midnight. And of course, all those rules are broken by the humans, and then chaos enters the world and everything goes to hell. Just as with the first movie, Gizmo here is accidentally exposed to water and becomes the inadvertent parent of another batch of Mogwai. We'll begin by discussing the Mogwai Claw, who ultimately becomes the leader of this old batch of Gremlins, and probably has the most unique creature design of all the Gremlins in the show. Her most distinctive feature are her long fingers and claws, and she does identify as a she, which we'll get into in a moment. She has those classic gremlin bat-shaped ears and red eyes, and her eyes are another unique feature about her and have this appearance almost of cosmetically shaped eyelashes, and probably of all her features are the one attribute that somewhat identify her as feminine. Claw reluctantly starts working for the industrialist slash wizard Riley Green, but Claw has ambitions of her own, and that that makes her a threat to Riley Green and ultimately sets her apart from the other gremlins as well, because she's just not living for the moment. She wants to live for the future as well, and Gizmo is part of that future in her vision. She's obsessed, infatuated with Gizmo. It becomes an abusive, toxic relationship on the same level as Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy. Claw is the second female gremlin introduced into the franchise since we got Greta in Gremlins 2, and those two female gremlins are uniquely different from each other. Whereas Claw is biologically, naturally female, Greta was a gremlin who underwent a sex change after altering their DNA by drinking a potion and became female. Before this series, for some reason, I always thought the gremlins were these sexually amorphous creatures, and I still kind of like the idea of keeping them gender neutral for the most part, because I just think it leans more into their playful, anarchic spirit, their capacity to like overturn boundaries and push limits and be edgier characters if you don't like slap a label on them and define them any which way. Claw has a lot of twisted moments in this series. One of the most memorable ones for me was when she bites this guy's finger off and then puts the finger in her mouth to make it look like she's smoking the cigar. And it's moments in the series like those where I think to myself, I'm so glad they didn't censor or remove that, because they could so easily have pulled their punches, and they didn't. They went there, and it just gives those scenes like an edge and a bite to them. No pun intended. All right, on to the next Mogwai named Noggin, who, as his name suggests, represents the brain or head of this old batch of gremlins. And his most pronounced feature is his big, grotesque head, which is disproportional to his frail body, and he looks like a walking fetus. And his character is definitely an homage to the brain, this guy from Gremlins 2, the new batch. And similar to the brain, at one point later in the series, Noggin drinks a magic potion that enhances his intellect. And then he takes on a civilized demeanor, becomes articulate. He just becomes a fun character in the same way that the brain is in the new batch, and is used as a source of like comedy and satire throughout the show. By the end of the series, Noggin has like the suit and not glasses like the brain, but he boasts a monocle. Despite his intellectual evolution, Noggin is still a gremlin. He still has that mischievous, chaotic streak. Still, at times, he succumbs to his base appetites and inclinations, and that often becomes a source of comedy. And I love that like interplay between his more like cultured, refined sense of self and identity, and then seeing that civilized exterior just strip away and seeing him give way to his like more base gremlin nature. Another gremlin character that stands out is Gaptooth. Similar to Claw, he has an enlarged jawline, large fangs, and all the classic gremlin features. Moving on to the next gremlin, Snout, who is the fourth gremlin of the first ones born from Gizmo. And yes, he has a snout. He has this nose that is angled upward, his most pronounced feature. And when he turns into a gremlin, it almost looks like a horn. He has those bat-shaped ears, and one of the most distinct gremlin character designs next to Claw, I would say. Now, moving on to the next Mogwai, Bucky. I would say his live-action analog in the movies is Lenny from Gremlins 2. They have a similar look, similar features, particularly the buck teeth they share in common. He doesn't seem to have much autonomy outside the group and is not featured as prominently as some of the other Gremlin characters, but he does have a fun interplay with Noggin's character, the brain gremlin, and often plays pranks on him, and those are fun moments. And I enjoyed Bucky's overall physical appearance, his like goofy Three Stooges comedic sensibility, and definitely I think his character is another example of how this show brings the screwball, self-referential sensibility, particularly from Gremlins 2, and works it into the show. Then we have Snout Jr., who, like Snout, has a pronounced upturned nose and is featured in some scenes. Nothing too notable about him. Then you have Duckface, who has really pronounced sensual lips, and that design was probably very much an homage to the duck-faced Greta Gremlin as well. And it's never determined whether Duckface is male or female, but the lips definitely might be a sign that it's another female gremlin. So those were all of the main gremlin characters that I noted down that had a distinct look and personality to them, and I likely missed some, so let me know if I did. And there are a lot more gremlins in the show, a whole army of them. I think all of them do a pretty good job of translating the concepts from the live action film into animated form. Very excited to see where they're going to take the Gremlin series, the franchise. I've heard rumors and possible announcements that are going to happen about a third live action movie. Christopher Columbus has written a script and they're working out the rights for it, and then maybe they'll get off the ground hopefully soon and we'll get another live action movie. I would hope so. All right, so that's a wrap, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you haven't already, please take the time to subscribe and like the video. As I've mentioned, right now I'm trying to get to about 500 subscribers, which is the goal. So that would be great to get there. And I appreciate everyone who's continued to watch the channel. It means a lot. I love all the comments and the feedback and so forth. And yeah, just look forward to more content coming your way here.